Rosas. We have the request for the sequestration of witnesses and an order of events to announce, but I'll let everybody do appearances first.
Lee Heights lawyer guardian ad litem.
Ms. Taja Thomas, counsel for the department. I present with Ms. Deja Miles, who is the CPS investigator, and Ms. Kristen Smith, who is the foster care worker. Ms. Miles, can you please state your name for the record?
Deja Miles with the department.
And Ms. Smith, can you please state your name for the record?
Kristen Smith, Catholic Charities.
Michael McFarland, representing Mother. Please introduce yourself.
Angel Rosas.
Brooks, I represent Jarrell Turnus, who's the legal father of two of these and putative father of a third.
All right, Ms. Amber Turnus, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Amber Turnus, beyond Jarrell's daughter.
Thank you. All right, Mr. McFarland, you asked for sequestration of the witnesses, which would include Ms. Amber Turnus. Is that right?
Correct.
Anyone else you'd like to make sure that we have sequestered, or anybody else have any other witnesses that we should?
I trust that DHHS is and get all witnesses.
Sounds good.
Other than the caseworkers, I know they are entitled to stay. So.
Very good. All right, so we're going to begin with the trial, and then we'll jump over to the pretrial and the disposition issue. So, because that's we have a doctor in our waiting room, we want to honor his time. But before we do that, are there any other preliminary issues or preliminary opening statements by any of our attorneys?
I have an opening statement. I'm not usually when to start, so.
Thank you, Your Honor. This matter, as the court knows, must be proven by preponderance of the evidence, and that burden is on the department to prove. Before you are two petitions. One was the original petition in June surrounding circumstances for the minor children. I'll leave their names off the record because I believe we are on YouTube at this time. And then a second petition, a supplemental petition, came in for a newborn in August. The crux of both petitions really surround, as relates to Ms. Rosas, the inability to adequately and safely parent her children in a manner that has left them free from any harm, whether that would be physical or psychological. Today, we will hear from a medical doctor from the University of Michigan Child Protection Team regarding the observations that professional observed for the two older children. We have certified medical records from ProMedica relating to the youngest child, and both of those pieces of evidence demonstrate that mom has a low frustration threshold when it comes to parenting her children, may present volatile towards other professionals, and not have an understanding of the developmental needs of her children. Because of those things in and of themselves, we believe that it would be sufficient to establish jurisdiction on those points. We also have Ms. Amber Turnus, who lived with the respondent parents in Kentucky and experienced firsthand the abuse, the physical abuse that is also present in this case. And with that, Your Honor, we would ask the court to take into consideration the testimony from the witnesses and the petition when you do make your decision at the end of this case. Thank you.
Mr. McFarland,
I reserve my opening statement until it's our case approved, Your Honor.
any comments this morning? Mr. Brooks?
No, Your Honor. I should point out my client's not here.
That's true. Have you heard from him?
No.
All right, so Ms. Thomas, at some point we'll look for your caseworkers to tell us what, if any, information they might have on that.
Yes, we do have some information for this morning on that point.
Anything from you this morning, Ms. Heiss?
Your Honor, I visited with the children face to face and their needs are being met in their current placement. The boys' placement is changing pretty soon, but at the present time, all their needs are met. Thank you.
First witness, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Your Honor. Call Dr. Carla Parkin Joseph.
All right, good morning, doctor. Can you hear me okay? This is Judge Sal.
Yes, good morning.
Give us your full name for the record, please.
Yes, Carla Parkin Joseph.
Good name.
Doctor, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, Ms. Thomas. Whenever you're ready.
Dr. Parkin Joseph, how would you, is that how you would like to be referred to today? Or,
Yes, that would be fine.
okay, thank you. Dr. Parkin Joseph, can you please tell us where you are employed?
I am a physician at CS Mott Children's Hospital as part of the University of Michigan, Michigan Medicine.
And at Michigan Medicine or at Mott's, what is your job title?
I am a child abuse pediatrician on the hospital system's child protection team.
And what education or qualifications do you have for that job?
So I am a medical doctor. I received my medical degree from the University of Toledo College of Medicine in 2010. From there, I completed a general pediatrics residency at the Children's Hospital of Michigan in Detroit. So at that point, I became board certified in general pediatrics. I stayed in Detroit at the Children's Hospital of Michigan for an additional year as a chief general pediatrics resident before going on to my fellowship in child abuse pediatrics at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I completed that program in 2017 and became board certified in child abuse pediatrics as well at that time in 2017.
And how long have you been at Michigan Medicine or with Michigan?
Since August of 2017.
Okay, wonderful. Your Honor, with it, I would move to admit this witness as an expert witness in the field of medical child abuse and neglect.
No position, Your Honor.
I have no client, no position.
I have no objection to her being qualified as an expert.
Thank you. I will recognize her. She has testified confidently that she is board certified in child abuse pediatrics, and I will recognize her expertise in that area. Go ahead.
Dr. Parkin Joseph, about how many children do you either see personally or provide consultation on with other medical professionals per month?
I would estimate an average of probably about 10 to 12 patients a month. And that's in all aspects of the field. So when there's concern for physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect. I see patients for a number of reasons.
So on average, maybe 120 patients a year, and you've been doing that for the last 7 years?
Correct, yes.
So about 840 patients about in the last 7 years, if I'm asked.
Approximately, yes.
And have you testified to in court regarding any of your findings or observations relating to those patients that you've treated or provided consultation on?
Yes, I have.
So you're familiar with this process?
Yes.
Do you recall consulting or either providing, do you recall providing care to or consulting on a matter involving the Turnus minors?
Yes, I do.
And to prepare for this trial, were you able to review any of the medical records or case notes?
Yes, I did.
Do you think that during your testimony today that you will need to refresh your memory with any of those documents?
Possibly, yes.
I just asked that if you do, whether it's me asking the question or another attorney, that you just let us know that you need to do that. And we may ask what document you're looking at, but just let us know that you do have to refresh your memory, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. In your preparation for this trial, Did you review a child protection team brief consult note that was provided to the CPS worker, Ms. Miles?
Yes, I did.
And was that dated June 4th of 2024?
I believe it was June. The note itself was created on June 3rd. It may have been June 4th that it was provided to CPS.
Okay, thank you for that. And based on your recollection and review of the file, what were the presenting issues for those two minor children when they were seen by your team?
My team and myself had been alerted that both Nicholas and Paul were being admitted to the hospital.
Since we're going out on YouTube, could we just use initials for the minor children?
Yes, Dr. Park and Joseph, we're on YouTube, and so to help protect the children's identity, that's why I refer to them as the Turnus minors or the children. If you would like to just say J or N, that's, I'm sorry, P or N, that's also fine.
I apologize.
No, thank you.
So my team had been alerted that the children had been admitted to the hospital with concerns for physical abuse and neglect. So the children had been admitted with some bruising that was concerning for physical abuse. And there was also concern that was raised about their small size, that they were both smaller than would be expected for other boys their age. So there was some concern, for failure to thrive, which is just that a child, who is not gaining weight as would be expected.
And what methods did you and your team use to either confirm or rule out those medical diagnoses, I guess? So whether that was failure to thrive, whether it was physical abuse or medical neglect, can you just take us through that process of what happens and how you came to your final conclusions?
Yes. So in general, when I am consulted here in the hospital, again, generally a concern is already raised by a medical professional for any type of abuse or neglect. And so my general process is to begin by gathering information. And my team does that by meeting with caregivers, obtaining history from available caregivers at the time. So in this case, this was the children's mother who was present at the bedside. So history was gathered from the mother. And we also gather information from available medical records as well. So I was able to review records from a prior emergency department visit within the ProMedica health system that both children had in the month of May of 2024. I was not able to see any primary care physician records. At times, we are able to evaluate those records if they're readily available to us at the time of our consultation. We also, during the time of the hospitalization, will follow with the primary medical team that's caring for the children in order to determine, as you mentioned, that cause potentially of failure to thrive. General pediatricians are able to evaluate children for those things and for potentially underlying medical conditions that would explain the failure to thrive, that would explain the poor weight gain. So we're gathering information during the hospitalization as well. We do a physical examination as well as review of laboratory evaluation, so blood work in this case, and both boys also had some imaging, some x-rays that were done as part of the abuse evaluation. And so we take all of that information together with my background in child abuse pediatrics to formulate a final assessment as to the likelihood of abuse or neglect in the presentation of the children.
And based on that process, what were your final diagnoses for each child?
For N, who was, I believe, 2 years and 3 months old at the time, he had some bruising that was noticed on his forehead and kind of on his shins, his knees. I believe there were some bruises overlying his ribs on his torso as well. And then, as I mentioned, the X-rays that were done did not identify any broken bones or anything of concern in his skeleton on those X-rays. And then, in regard to his weight, he was noted to be a failure to thrive. So he did have a low weight. However, the laboratory studies that had been performed by his primary medical team did not identify an underlying medical cause for that failure to thrive. And N continued to eat well throughout his hospitalization and did show consistent weight gain, over the course of his hospitalization, which again would support that there wasn't a medical condition causing his failure to thrive. Those bruises that I mentioned, could be caused just by the child kind of typically interacting with his environment. It's kind of the forehead, bony prominences like shins, knees, elbows. Those are common places that we see bruising on toddlers. So while physical abuse couldn't be completely excluded as a possibility or as a potential cause of his bruising, it's still, again, a possibility. I just could not make that diagnosis based on the information that I had at the time. In regard to his failure to thrive, as I mentioned, there wasn't any underlying medical condition that would explain that. And with adequate calorie intake, he, again, was eating consistently, which would suggest that potentially he was not receiving enough calories in order to grow as we would expect.
Okay, I just want to kind of go back to the front. You have been referring to this child as N. My notes reflect that child P would have been the child that would have been 2 years and 3 or 4 months at that time. Is your testimony regarding child P then?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, it was regarding child P, who is just over 2 years old at the time of my consultation. I apologize.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, as it relates to child N, who for my notes would have been about 16 months at the time of evaluation, is that what your records reflect? Okay, what were your findings for child N?
So N also had a couple of skin findings. So he had a scrape, I believe, like on his lower leg, and a kind of a healing scab on his lower leg as well. I did not see any other signs of bruising or anything like that. So again, as I mentioned for child P, these again for a child that is ambulatory, is up and moving around and walking and learning to walk really, interacting with their environment. This is, potentially injuries that could happen as a result of that normal interaction with their environment. So, again, I could not completely exclude physical abuse as a cause of those findings. I think there were also other possibilities as to how those had occurred. N was also a low weight as well, which would qualify him for a diagnosis of failure to thrive. As with his older sibling, the laboratory work did not identify a medical condition to explain his failure to thrive. And he also showed weight gain during his hospitalization and was able to eat safely on his own as a typical child. So again, that would again raise concern for possible neglect and failure again to provide adequate calorie intake to support his normal growth.
Did N have, how was his skeletal survey?
Yes, so on his skeletal survey, his x-rays that were done, he did have a healing tibial fracture, which I believe was on the left side, if I remember correctly. And at the time of his presentation, that fracture was healing, but we could see that it was what we would call a toddler's fracture. So it is a relatively common fracture that can be seen in toddlers when there's kind of a fall and twisting around that leg. So again, it was healing at the time at his presentation. So, we can't pinpoint exactly when that happened, but we do know that that healing process takes about 10 to 14 days before it's visible on x-ray. So we know that at least that's, a couple of weeks old, most likely, by the time we did the x-rays on his presentation to the hospital. So in regard to that, again, I cannot completely exclude physical abuse as a cause of that fracture, but because it is, a common fracture that we see, in that age group and that developmental stage.
I think a question maybe outstanding to everyone is like, okay, well, the bruising might be related to developmentally appropriate interactions with the environment, and this fracture that's healing may have been as a result of the same sort of behaviors from the child. Then did the parent really do anything wrong? Can you help us understand maybe what a reason a prudent parent might do in those circumstances, or how they might know their child is failure to thrive or there's a fracture that needs to be medically treated?
Yeah, so in regard to the fracture, I would expect that child N would have some symptoms of discomfort, especially upon bearing weight. And I would expect there to be some pain at the time. So I would imagine that he would probably have decreased use of that leg. He might be okay while crawling if he's crawling on his knees, but I would expect that, there would be a change in his activity level, that he wouldn't be pulling to stand and he wouldn't be wanting to put weight on that leg as a result of the fracture. Typically, that is how these fractures are found and are discovered and brought to medical attention because a parent notes that there is a change in activity or pain, crying, irritability that accompanies that fracture. So I think it is a little unusual that, we have when child N presented that we found the healing fracture because there wasn't a history from the child's mother regarding, a fussy period or, those pain symptoms or change in activity, as I mentioned. In regard to the failure to thrive, I think the biggest thing that would help a parent recognize that their child was not gaining weight as expected would be the routine medical care that's recommended, at scheduled intervals in order to monitor the child's weight gain and growth and their development as well, throughout that, kind of early childhood, toddlerhood as well. So I think, lacking that information and the child not following with their a routine medical provider, really limits, the ability to kind of find any issues and intervene quickly and appropriately.
You mentioned that part of your review of the records included medical records from ProMedica in May.
Yes, I believe there was one ER visit on May 17th to Hickman Hospital.
And were there, based on your review and recollection, were there any concerns about abuse at that time with the doctor who saw the children at ProMedica?
The records just documented that the children had come in for, potentially a CPS or Child Protective Services issue. But at that time, there weren't any documented injuries. And that doctor did not have specific concerns for abuse as a result of that medical encounter.
Based on your encounters with the children, the record review, the skeletal surveys, or the imaging, did you have concerns about child abuse and neglect for these two children?
So I can't completely exclude the possibility of abuse, in both children's findings. But I think it is still a possibility. But there's also other possibilities that could potentially cause the findings for both children. In regard to the failure to thrive, I believe that there is neglect that could cause that failure to thrive, and just really failing to provide adequate intake in order to support both boys' growth, as well as medical neglect as well, and again, failing to provide that kind of routine medical care that would allow identification of any issues and intervention.
During the children's hospitalization, were there concerns about any of the interactions between the mother and children that were apparent to you or to team members?
Yes, there was a documented incident, I believe, on June 1st. During the hospitalization, in which a bedside nurse had entered the patient's room. And at that time, both of the boys were in one room, even though they, had to stay in separate rooms. They were housed in different separate rooms while they were hospitalized. But the nurse entered, I believe, child N's room to note their mother spanking child P, and I believe stating something along the lines of they don't listen, or something like that, as a result. So this was prior to my consultation with the child's mother. So we did also discuss, spanking and research surrounding that, and that we generally recommend against spanking as a form of punishment or discipline, and discussed other ways that to guide a child and to discipline a child.
Was there anything else that stood out to you about either the affect or the behaviors of the mother in this matter?
During my consultation and during my time in the room with both children and mother, I do recall that I was concerned for her health because she was also pregnant at the time and seemed very uncomfortable. But otherwise, she was able to provide some history, but due to what she says, being in and out of the hospital herself with her own pregnancy, she was not able to provide a lot of details about the care of the children, obviously because she was, in the hospital at the time and wasn't providing direct care to the children.
Thank you for that. I have no further questions, but other attorneys may. Thank you.
Doctor, as I recall, the child with the healing break did not demonstrate or did not show any break or fracture when the child came in. It was only when an X-ray was taken that was discovered, correct?
That's correct, yes. He was walking normally at the time that he presented.
And so you're saying this would have occurred, if I heard you correctly, maybe 10 days prior? Is that what I'm hearing?
Potentially, yes.
So you can't say with medical certainty that mother would have known that the child had a fracture. The child presented the way the child presented to the hospital staff, correct?
I believe that he would have shown, or potentially could have shown, some symptoms at the time of the injury. But being that, at the time that he presented, it was healing. I imagine that a lot of that, if he was in pain or any limited, mobility would have really resolved at that time.
Child could also have crawled more than walked, which would not have been noticed so much by parents, correct?
Possibly, yes.
Also, the child could have perhaps a parent could also have mistaken a sprain for the symptoms that you're describing, correct?
Possibly, yes.
If the child did not present 10 days after this at the hospital with symptoms, is it possible within 5 days that the child would not present with symptoms?
Again, I would expect there to be some pain and discomfort at the time of the injury. Really it would be the parent or caregiver that would need to recognize that in order to bring them to medical attention.
You can't with a medical certainty tell us when any exhibition of pain or discomfort would stop, correct?
Correct, I cannot.
And once again, you cannot pinpoint that my client, which is the mother, that she was aware of this, that she indicated that she had been in and out of the hospital, correct?
Correct.
You said that both of these children presented as, is it malnourished or undernourished? What is your classification?
So the diagnosis that I made is failure to thrive.
Okay.
Which is kind of failing to demonstrate appropriate weight gain.
How much was the youngest child? What was the child's weight when the child came in?
I would have to look back at my documentation for that.
Please do.
And
Please
you
do.
said that the youngest child?
Yes, please. I'm going to ask you about both children, just to give you a heads up. I'm going to ask you the weight when they came in and the weight when they left, unless you know what the weight gain was for each child. Do you know what the weight gain was for each child?
Yeah, it's in my documentation.
Yes, please. It just tells what the weight gain was for the youngest, and then tell us the weight gain for the oldest.
So for child N, the youngest, he gained about 5 ounces in his, I believe, 8-day hospitalization. And for a child P, he gained about 9.5 ounces in his also 8-day hospitalization.
Okay, now what was the weight of the youngest child when that child came in?
His weight was 16 pounds and about 8.5 ounces.
Percentage figures, 5 ounces is really not an awful lot, correct?
Correct.
And now the oldest child, what was that child's weight when that child came in?
He was 22 pounds and almost 8 ounces.
Once again, the weight gain that you've said compared to the total body weight is really not an awful lot, correct?
Correct.
And these children were pretty sedentary at the hospital, which means they weren't running around. They were not doing a lot of activities which would burn off weight, correct?
They were still able to move about their hospital room, had toys, actually even had a mat on the floor so that they were able to play on the floor as well.
So you viewed them the entire time frame to know that they were active as they were at home or not?
I did not, no. That was just, I'm just speaking of my consultation, my time in the room with the patients and their mother.
Now, you didn't actually see mother inappropriately treating these children, did you?
I did not.
And did you question mother about the allegations about her treatment of the children as per the notes that you referenced earlier?
I know that I discussed it with mom because again, that had happened prior to my consultation that it had occurred. I don't believe that I questioned her specifically about that.
Is there a reason why you wouldn't question her if you are an abuse investigator?
Well, I'm not an investigator, I'm a physician, but I, provided information from, the American Academy of Pediatrics about, the recommendation against spanking and for other forms of discipline.
In your training, you were aware that in Michigan, it is not illegal for a parent to exercise reasonable corporal punishment. You are aware of that, correct?
I am, yes.
As a matter of fact, nobody called law enforcement to pursue criminal charges against my client for spanking her child, correct?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this line of questioning. It's argumentative.
No, it's not argumentative, it's
It is,
factual.
Your Honor. It's calling a conclusion without the witness being able to testify to a fact that the witness has actual notice of or awareness of.
This witness testified my client spanked the child. So I'm getting into, is that really an issue? Or is it basically just a hospital formality that they do not want to have a child spanked? Let me rephrase the question.
Oh, Mr. McFarland, before you do, I just want to let you know that I did hear that, and she has sort of already addressed that just by simply saying that she addressed the research on the issue with mom. She really didn't express judgment on it one way or the other than to say that she shared the research on it, and she's not really taking a position on whether it's legal or illegal or abusive or not, as far as I understand. Is that right, doctor? Have I got the right impression of your?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. I didn't get that impression, but now that she's clarified that, I will move on. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks, do you have any questions?
I do not, Your Honor.
Ms. Hicks?
Thank you. Doctor, when you were talking about the boys being underweight and your assessment of failure to thrive, isn't there usually like a percentage of height and weight that parents know are given from their physician?
Yes, so every time a child comes in and has a weight or height or length, head circumference measured, that is plotted on either a CDC or a WHO growth chart, so that we can compare that child, to the rest of the population. As I mentioned, same gender and same age as that child.
Do you have those percentages for these children when you saw them on intake?
I would have to go back and look at my documentation to give that, but I don't recall the exact numbers.
Would you please do that?
Yes. So child P, the older child, when he presented to our hospital on May 31st, presented with a weight at about the 0.8 percentile. So they were less than the first percentile for age and sex. Patient N, the younger child, when he presented at about the 0.12 percentile. So again, less than the first percentile for age and sex.
Thank you. And does their height explain any of that low scale number?
No, so that was based just purely on their weight. And so that is not necessarily adjusting for their height, but they were also noted to be, their stature was noted to be short, compared to, again, the rest of the population of that age and sex.
Thank you. When you reviewed the record from ProMedica, did they show you any x-rays of the children?
No, I don't believe there were any x-rays done for the children at that time.
The tibia fracture for N, is that something that at the time of injury might have swelled or shown redness of his skin?
So it's possible that there may have been some swelling, but in regard to redness or even bruising, it's possible that there may not have been any bruising.
Okay. Do you think a satisfactory treatment for that injury would have been to place the child in a playpen for several days until he stopped complaining of pain?
No, I believe that the child should have medical attention so that their pain can be appropriately addressed, and so that fracture can be immobilized so that he can be put in a cast, so that there wouldn't be any further injury to that, while it's starting to heal.
In the ProMedica records that you reviewed, did that treatment provider note lack of compliance with recommended medical evaluation of the children over time?
Yes, I believe so. That I believe there was note that the children did not have a regular primary care physician that they were following for their routine care.
Okay. Where do parents these days get the information that the children are required to be seen medically every so often? Where does that information get communicated to parents?
So it's communicated even at the birth hospitalization. So when the child is born, I know in our hospital system, we like to have a plan at least in place for follow-up visits with a primary care physician. So, even, prior to that as well, even prenatal visits, it's communicated, that the child should have, routine medical care and should have a provider in place in order to receive that care. And then, once that first visit happens, after the newborn hospitalization, then, at that time they're kind of scheduled, further on for those, regularly scheduled visits.
Okay, and then you said that bedside, you did have some conversations with mom. Did you find through that conversation or any of the records the length of time that mom or dad had lived in Michigan?
I don't recall that I had that information.
So
Just sticking in the way.
The legal battle shifts. Is this abuse or failure as a caregiver? The doctor stays careful, but the evidence keeps stacking, and the courtroom knows this isn't looking good.
Is that in the waiting room?
Thank you, Dave.
All right, Deputy Ames, if you could swear in Ms. Amber, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Turnus, can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Can you please state your full name for the record?
Amber Rose Turnus.
And Ms. Turnus, how are you familiar with Jarrell Turnus and Angel Rosas?
Very. Used to live with them a lot.
How are you related to either of them?
Oh, yes, I am Drell's daughter.
How old are you right now?
I am 19.
Sorry, just taking notes. My computer screwed a little bit. Okay. Ms. Turnus, you just testified that you've lived with Jarrell and Angel a lot.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, when did you live with them?
I lived with them in Albion, and I don't know what year it was, but then I moved back with them, and they lived in Cadiz, Kentucky in 2020.
How long did you live with them in Kentucky during that 2020 period?
Not long. I wasn't even with them for a whole year.
Okay, so if you were 19 now, you were about 15 at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall how old Angel was at that time?
Angel was 21 or 20.
Okay. Can you tell us what it was like to live with your dad and Angel?
There was a lot of fighting. There wasn't much communication, I would say. Living with them, at first it would start out good. And then towards, I would say, me living with them for about a month, that's when it would go down. They would start fighting, and then I would get involved into it. There would be more fighting about me than anything else. Angel would get jealous. Sometimes when I want to spend time with my dad, she would start arguments with him about it. Or if Drell would let me do something that Angel didn't want me to do, that would start an argument, and then it would lead to physical. Then living with Drell and Angel, we lived in Jackson, Michigan. We were staying there, and something got brought up. I don't remember what it was, and that's when me and Angel got into a fist fight.
Do you know how old you would have been when you were living in Jackson?
I was 14.
Okay. So then after that, when you guys moved to Kentucky in 2020, or you're living with them, were those sorts of verbal arguments that were turning physical, were those occurring in Kentucky as well?
Yes. When I moved in with them 2020 on July 21st, like I said, it was going good until...
Then suddenly, the case pivots. The father is missing. Riding a bike to court, tire blown? Sounds unreal. But now the judge must delay decisions that could impact everything moving forward.
Like I said, Jarrell would let me go do things, or I would sit there and ask him, hey, do you want to spend some one-on-one time? Since me and my dad, we kind of had a good bond, but not really. He was obviously gone in and out of jail a lot, so we didn't have much time to spend with each other. So when we did, it kind of was like reassuring to spend time with him, because, you know, he was my dad. But Angel would get mad and start throwing a tantrum. One day, it was not even a week of me being down there. I asked to spend time with my dad since I haven't seen them in about, I would say, year or so. When I moved down there, she started arguing with my dad about it, and then my dad started arguing with her, and then I just got told to leave the room at that time. And shortly down the line, I found out that I was pregnant. I was 15. I brought it to my dad. I told him about it, and they start talking about school and what I was going to do. And I told them that I was going to go to school, but I was not going to go to college. That I could still take care of my kid during school. She got mad because she couldn't at that time do a full-term pregnancy. She had a lot of miscarriages. So I'm taking that she got mad that I was pregnant and that I was going to keep the
I'm
kid.
objecting, Your Honor. This is speculation. I believe that. I'm thinking that. This is not observation.
Would you like to respond?
Yeah, no, I can provide an instruction. I think that's most appropriate. Yeah, Ms. Turnus, when you're testifying, you can only testify to things you have direct knowledge of. So thinking or reporting what you think someone's thinking or feeling is not something you have actual knowledge of. So can you just, I'm going to try to actually kind of rein in your testimony. I'm kind of letting you do a narrative now, but I think I'm going to try to rein it in to help direct it. During 2020, after you told your dad you were pregnant, how were things safe in that home?
No.
Why were they not safe?
There was a lot of fighting in that house every day, but to the time we wake up to the time we go to bed. There was never.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. So there's a lot of fighting. Were you ever physically abused by either your father or Miss Rosas?
Living with Drell, no, Drell did not put his hands on me, but Angel did.
And what do you mean she put her hands on you? What did she do to you?
She kicked me in my side underneath my ribs. When I was pregnant, she bit me in my arm. She would chase me around the house. She has physically pulled my hair. Sorry, my kid was waking up. She was just very physical when it came to a lot of things. She has punched me in my face. There was more, I would say, kicking and biting than there was really anything else.
And did she kick or bite Jarrell as well that you witnessed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions, but other attorneys may, okay?
Yes.
Mr. McFarland?
One moment, yeah. No questions.
Ms. Heiss?
No questions, thank you.
Any reason we should not thank and excuse Amber Turnus?
No, Your Honor.
Just one question, if you might, Your Honor. Last incident of what you claim to be fighting was about 6 years ago, correct?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further.
I have no objection to her being excused.
No objection.
Okay, thank you for your time and your testimony, Ms. Amber Turnus. You're welcome to exit our meeting.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
What we see in this case is not a simple yes or no situation. The medical evidence shows real injuries, including bruising, underweight concerns, and even a healing fracture that suggests something happened days before it was discovered. However, the doctor also makes it clear that not every injury automatically proves intentional abuse. This leaves the court with a difficult question: was this negligence, lack of awareness, or something more serious? At the end of the day, the legal system must decide based on probability, not assumption. But the real question for viewers is, when does lack of care become criminal responsibility